Part scout, part commando, part sheriff, the Rangers of the New California Republic act as an elite branch of the NCR Army, complete with their own uniforms, history, and mission set. Hailing from the capital of Shady Sands, the Rangers have evolved into a highly renowned fighting force whose legendary skill echoes across the breadth of post-apocalyptic America. By the year 2281, the mass of their organization is levied against the raging bull of Caesar's Legion, who themselves are ramping up for a full-scale war from just over the Colorado River. To hold back the tide of the Legion, the NCR Army has committed the Rangers to conduct advanced scouting operations, gather intelligence, and maintain outposts in order to keep a close eye on their enemies in the region. While these elite units are known to chew nails and spit napalm, their origins are far more wholesome than the Special Forces counterparts we find in Fallout New Vegas, and as mentioned earlier, stretch back to before the founding of the NCR itself. Over a century prior to the courier's travels amidst the biting winds of the Mojave, a small settlement sprouted out of the deserts of the Old World. With the use of a Garden of Eden creation kit, colloquially known as a GEC, a small group of vault dwellers from Vault 15 would begin anew, naming their home Shady Sands, presumably after the qualities of the land they settled. With families to protect, a group of settlers would take up arms in defense of the town. This collection of ragtag former vault dwellers went on to form the first Town Watch, under the oversight of their captain, Seth. In the early days of the Wasteland, there was no shortage of threats. Pre-war abominations, raider gangs, and an ever-expanding mutant army are just a few of the dangers that the average Wastelander faced on a daily basis. This is no different for the settlers of Shady Sands, who were plagued by hordes of raiders and rad scorpions alike. By the time the legendary Vault Dweller passed through their settlement, Seth and the other Town Watch were determined to remove these threats plaguing their town at any and all cost. Enlisting the help of the Vault Dweller, Seth leads them to a nearby cave where a horde of rad scorpions were nesting. It's here that the Vault Dweller, acting as the total badass that they were, annihilated the rad scorpions, liberating Shady Sands from the oppression of these mutated arachnids. The peace didn't last long, however, as once the party returned to town, they were slapped with some devastating news. Tandy, the beloved daughter of the town leader Aradesh, had been kidnapped by the Khans, a group of raiders that, like our townies of Shady Sands, originated from the nearby Vault 15. After receiving the news, Seth once again calls upon the Vault Dweller to help him, and the people of Shady Sands, recover their beloved jewel. The mission to save Tandy is told many ways by many a Wastelander. Some say the Vault Dweller entered the Khan hideout guns blazing, killing all in his wake. Others say he snuck in, picking the lock on Tandy's cage and ushering her out of her prison under the cover of darkness. There are even tales of how the Vault Dweller impersonated one of the Khans to gain their trust before freeing the girl. Regardless of circumstance, the result remained the same. Tandy had been freed and returned to her father, safe and sound, leading to the people of Shady Sands revering the hero for generations to come. In the 80 years since the Vault Dweller saved Tandy from the clutches of the Khan raiders, both her father Aradesh and his old friend Seth have since disappeared into the wasteland, searching for the legendary Vault 13, hoping to find their old friend along with it. Potentially inspired by the heroic actions undertaken by the Vault Dweller, the Town Watch would eventually evolve from a humble, small-town militia unit into a sizable paramilitary force bent on ending all slavery in the wasteland. No longer restrained to their town in the nearby desert, this unit began to conduct anti-slavery operations throughout the entirety of the vast and unending wastes of California. Now known as the Rangers, they honor Seth as the father of their organization and the first of their kind, showing the profound impact he had on growing the organization and their ideology. On the fast track to becoming Billy Badasses, the NCR Rangers would develop a slew of skills and experience from their various operations. While their numbers had increased significantly since the time of the Vault Dweller, they still did not have nearly the manpower needed to muscle their way around the wastes. This disadvantage led them to conduct most of their operations with the utmost secrecy, a stratagem so effective that their enemies couldn't even begin to track their movements. The Rangers were so successful in their endeavors to maintain operational security that their outposts had become near impossible to detect, allowing them to shuttle newly liberated slaves into Republic territory with relative ease and without fear of repercussion. Operational security and espionage weren't the only improvements to the organization. The Rangers saw vast improvements in their armor systems, force multipliers, and had also become quite capable of engaging enemies in open conflicts. With the massive uptick in combat experience entering the organization via raids on slaver caravans, their lack of numbers began to matter less and less. Equipped with the advanced Mark II combat armor and heavy weaponry like miniguns and combat shotguns, in pristine condition, mind you, even a small team could hold off a slaver horde without breaking a sweat. While the Rangers were highly successful in slowing the operations of the Slavers Guild, they weren't able to halt them completely. Slave camps and purchasing centers still held out during this period, with a dealer practicing business right outside their main headquarters in the NCR, adding insult to injury. As an initiation for the Chosen One, the Rangers had tasked them with disbanding the camp and freeing the slaves, to which the Chosen One is said to have completed without issue, earning them a coveted piece of memorabilia, the Ranger Pin, as well as a spot amongst the ranks of the Wasteland's most badass liberators. As the years progressed, the many building nations within the ruins of California continued to expand. With the assistance of the Rangers, the NCR was able to establish a firm foothold in the region, eventually building strong political and economic relations with the surrounding towns, as well as a formidable army to protect their new territory and interests. With the NCR consisting of 5 of the largest settlements on the West Coast, it wouldn't be long before their borders consumed all of California, pushing into the territories of Oregon, Nevada, and Mexico. The modus operandi of the Rangers would begin to change as the NCR morphed from a small coalition of towns into a fully fledged country. While still a staple of their mission set, anti-slavery operations would begin to take a back seat to more important missions needed to progress the interests of the NCR. Rangers would begin to act as the Special Forces branch of the Army, conducting long-range reconnaissance, counterterrorism, and intelligence operations. While still independent from the Army's rank and file, they were no longer a wholly independent organization, having been integrated under the command of the NCR Army. In the early 2270s, conflicts in the Mojave annexation campaign would continue to ramp up, leading to the Rangers' increased involvement in eastern operations. While the organization already had a presence in the Mojave to some capacity, the growing threat of Caesar's Legion from just across the Colorado River would pull even more Rangers into the fold. Luckily for the Rangers, they had help from a local faction with adjacent skills who had been fighting the Legion for years at this point, the Desert Rangers of Nevada. While the Desert Rangers were elite in their own right, their losses were mounting with each and every conflict. They knew they could not defeat Caesar on their own. In a bid to accomplish their mission of protecting Nevada and the greater Mojave, the Desert Rangers would petition the NCR to provide security for the region against the onslaught of the Legion. This petition was accepted, and in 2271, the Ranger Unification Treaty was signed between the two factions, effectively absorbing the Desert Rangers into the NCR Rangers in exchange for the NCR's promise to protect the Mojave. The location of this iconic meeting is forever memorialized by a massive statue of 2 Rangers atop the hill it was signed, overlooking the vast expanse of their domain. Following the unification, the NCR Rangers would see a boost in their numbers and skill set, with many Desert Rangers bringing with them a plethora of intel on the Legion, including vital information on their military tactics and modus operandi, giving the NCR the edge they needed to prepare for war. They also passed on useful information for survival in the harsh Mojave wastes, as well as advances in wasteland medicine and repair skills. In addition to this, and to honor their unification, the iconic dusters that were donned by the Desert Rangers were repurposed for the NCR Ranger veterans as part of their iconic black armor, which prior to this was only a set of pre-war Los Angeles Police Department riot gear. It is believed that many of the weapons utilized by the Rangers were affected not only by the unification, but the evolving mission set as well, which is why the NCR Rangers in the Mojave, veteran and otherwise, are seen utilizing more long rifles such as cowboy repeaters, brush guns, hunting revolvers, even though that's not a rifle, etc. You get what I mean. Instead of the more advanced combat shotguns, flamers, and miniguns they were using just 40 years prior. As their mission evolved into mostly scouting, observing, and reporting over direct action assaults, it would make sense that their loadouts would reflect this. Having weapons that are lighter, require less ammo, and can engage at a significant distance is far more beneficial than lugging around a heavy minigun with 500 rounds of ammunition and a massive backpack on long treks through the Mojave Desert. We also noticed an evolution of their armor around this time. While NCR veterans use the aforementioned black armor, non-veteran units make use of a custom combat armor. This Ranger combat armor is handcrafted in the NCR and specialized to meet the various needs and demands of patrol rangers. For rangers who are not designated for patrol and unlikely to see much direct action, they can be seen sporting lightweight Western wear customized to meet the demands of life in the desert. This doesn't seem to be a uniform as much as it seems to be a practical fashion choice. We know that the Brahmin business back west is booming, and many civilians from the NCR are seen to dress primarily in Western wear. Despite a century of experience in counterterrorism, counter-slavery, and direct action, the NCR Rangers would quickly meet their match in the likes of Caesar's Legion. While the caliber of a standard Legion soldier is greater than that of any other known army in the wasteland, their skills still pale in comparison to the elite NCR Rangers, with Centurions being the only Legion soldier said to outclass them. However, the Legion is highly adaptable, and due to their long war with the Desert Rangers of Nevada, they knew just how to hit the NCR Rangers where it hurt. The Rangers soon found themselves embroiled in a terror war, where their fortitude and morality would be pushed to its breaking point. Caesar's Legion, utilizing their expertise for subversion and sabotage, would lure the Rangers into ambush as their primary tactic, slowly wearing them down via attrition. Due to the volunteer nature of their organization, and selection standards so high that even those who do volunteer wash out at a consistent 80% rate, any casualties in this organization deal a critical blow to the Rangers' operational effectiveness, as they are far from easily replaced. In addition to battlefield casualties, many survivors of Legion ambushes would be forcibly retired from the organization due to injuries sustained, creating an even larger gap in the Rangers' available manpower. The Legion, using these tactics, showcases exactly why they were too formidable an opponent for the Desert Rangers and their abysmal numbers. The setbacks didn't stop there, however, as the Legion began implementing the use of youngins in their terror campaign in order to force the Rangers to drop their guards, often ending in horrific trauma for all of those involved. One harrowing account from Ranger Andy documents an instance of where he encountered a little one in a closet while sweeping a house.
A few years back, we get a tip that some Legion slavers were holed up in this burnt-out house a few clicks from where we were stationed. We get there and it's deserted. No sign anyone's been there. I mean, nothing. As we're leaving, I hear something behind me. I turn around and there's this kid, just skin and bone, and he's looking up at us and he's scared half to death. Been hiding in a closet. I go to grab him out of there and I notice he's holding something in his hand. Something metal. He shuts himself back in the closet and that's when I see the grenade he's left by my feet. They do it a lot, the Legion, using kids. They know we'll hesitate. Anyway, that was the first time. Second time, I fell down those stairs in front of the motel, just in case I got to thinking I'd put it all behind me.
Another account from Corporal Sterling of the NCR's 1st Recon Sniper Unit details his medical retirement from the Rangers following his stint as a POW.
Name Sterling, 1st Recon. Can't say I've seen you before. I'd remember if I had. Got a good memory for faces, landmarks and such too. Comes with practice, that's all, and a lot of scouting from place to place. Used to be a Ranger, one of the first they sent out east back before we took the dam. Observation and reconnaissance. We took the lay of the land, checked out the locals, and kept ourselves inconspicuous. A couple friends of mine were the first to scout the dam. That was back in '73, if I recall. A lot of those Rangers are dead now. Vegas always chewed men up. It's just a little more literal nowadays. Well, that wasn't really a matter of choice. Got myself caught by legionaries up near Malpay. They had themselves some fun with me. Mangled my hands and feet pretty good. Wasn't much good with the pistol after that. Wasn't gonna be trekking across the waste on any more long scouts either. Caesar's boys figured I wasn't going anywhere after what they'd done to me. So they didn't bother tying me up. I crawled out of there on my elbows and knees. Must have looked a sight. Then I rolled down an embankment into the Colorado. Guess I had a mind to drown rather than give Caesar's boys the satisfaction of killing me. But a couple Rangers happened to be watching from across the river. They jumped on in and pulled me out of there. Lucky break, they said.
After a decade of brutal guerrilla war waged against them, the NCR Rangers would soon seize an opportunity to flip the script and deal a devastating blow to Caesar. In the year 2277, Caesar's most trusted commander, the Malpais Legate, marched his forces onto Hoover Dam. The time had come. Caesar was determined to take the megalith and push the NCR out entirely, clearing a path for his legion to march on New Vegas. This was his Rubicon. In the fight that ensued, the bear and bull clashed horn over claws for this old world wall, equaling each other in ferocity. Years of fighting Caesar had given the Rangers a unique advantage in this battle. Their chief, Ranger Hanlon, was keenly aware of their shortcomings in open conflict and devised a strategy to tip the scales of balance in favor of the NCR. Previous encounters with the Legion had showcased the double-edged blade of their tactics, the chain of command, a factor that is one of their biggest strengths, and in this specific scenario, their fatal flaw. Hanlon ordered his Rangers and the 1st Recon sharpshooters to occupy a ridge overlooking the dam top. Knowing that the Legion was dependent on their leadership for unit cohesion, Hanlon ordered his forces to target high-ranking officers, slowly breaking down the command structure. The Malpais Legate, realizing that the sniper's nest posed a significant threat to his assault, ordered the elite Legion veteran to push through the NCR lines and nullify the sharpshooters. Little did he know, the Rangers were ready for them. Pulling back from the ridge and into the nearby town of Boulder City, the NCR Rangers, having rigged the entire city to explode, would successfully lure the Legion veterans into a trap of their own. NCR troopers on the dam top were ordered to fall to the side and let the legionaries pass. Once the mass of their forces had concentrated in the area, the city lit up like a firework. This maneuver would wipe out the majority of Legion veterans in the battle, dealing a massive blow to their efforts to take Hoover Dam. The loss of leadership and elite fighters sowed chaos amongst their ranks, and soon after, the Legion was in full retreat, rushing across the dam top and back into the wilds of Arizona. While the heroics of the Rangers would be praised for years to come, this battle was not without its cost. In an attempt to hold back the tide of the Legion, several Rangers and NCR troopers had become trapped in Boulder City. With no way out, they would resolve themselves to engage the enemy, ensuring the Legion veterans stayed put for the detonation. The sacrifices made on this day are memorialized by a monument outside the ruins of the city, where the rubble left in the wake of the explosion is so thick that many soldiers and Rangers still cannot be recovered. In the aftermath of the first battle for Hoover Dam, the majority of Ranger units in the Mojave have been deployed to the Eastern Front, where they maintain small outposts along the Colorado River. In this new era of the campaign, the Rangers are largely tasked with observing and reporting on the various happenings occurring on the front. Very seldom are they utilized in scouting and direct action missions now, with notable exceptions being Ranger Bryce Anders, who is dispatched by Colonel Shue at Camp McCarran to dispatch Motor Runner, the leader of the Fiends, Ranger Dobson, who is off on his own to collect intelligence on the Powder Gangers, and the NCR assassins that are dispatched to eliminate various enemies of the Republic. The already low number of Rangers in this region is diminishing even further as the Mojave is continuing to chip away at the ranks of the organization. The Fiends, despite their lack of training and overuse of chems, seem to have enough numbers and combat ability to cause a significant issue for the Rangers, killing 2 and a potential 3rd without the assistance of the courier. While that doesn't sound like a lot, keep in mind that the entire Mojave has something like 2 to 3 dozen Rangers in total. During a firefight outside of REPCON headquarters in South Vegas, a Ranger known as Esteban Morales was mortally wounded in the line of duty. Bleeding out on the cracked pavement, he would engage the Fiends with suppressive fire so that his squad could retreat to safety. While successful in saving his team, Morales would succumb to his injuries shortly after. His squad planned to launch a counterattack and retrieve his body. However, the onslaught of the Fiends was so fierce that they were unable to do so, forcing them to leave him there to rot under the brutal Mojave sun. Esteban's wife, a private in the NCR Army, received word of this tragedy and begged the NCR command to retrieve his body so that way she could bury him proper. When they refused, Esteban's best friend and fellow Ranger, Jackson, would set out on his own to retrieve the body. Despite his best attempt, Jackson was no match for these fiends and would unfortunately meet the same grisly end under the scorching Nevada sun. The elite training and experience sets the Rangers up to be a force of nature. However, time and time again, they fall when up against superior numbers. This was the case with Ranger Esteban and Jackson, as well as the aforementioned Ranger Anders, who, in his attempts to assassinate Motor Runner in Vault 3, catches a bullet in the leg and is forced to retreat, despite taking out a dozen of these psychopathic fiends on his own. Ranger Anders' leg wound becomes infected, an unfortunate situation which will absolutely kill him without urgent medical attention. Attention he will not receive without courier intervention, ultimately adding to the irreplaceable casualties inflicted upon the Rangers. As if these deaths aren't tragic enough, the Legion manages to inflict a devastating blow by attacking Ranger Station Charlie just south of Novak, completely wiping out every Ranger in the station, with the exception of one that is taken prisoner, assumed to be Ranger Stella, the final combatant in the Legion arena. All of these tragic deaths combined with Ranger Hanlon's falsifying of field reports leaves the NCR Rangers in a terrible position by the events of Fallout New Vegas. Outgunned, undersupplied, or oversupplied but with the wrong items, underutilized, and operating with incorrect intel. Despite their bleak situation, hope is just beyond the horizon. As an inevitable second battle for Hoover Dam draws near, NCR High Command redeploys their force of veteran Rangers from Baja, where they were supposedly chasing ghosts. The Ranger vets make their way through Dayglow to the Mojave in order to reinforce key strategic positions. After having served 20 years in the organization and proven to be as silent as a shadow and as ferocious as the Deathclaw, a veteran Ranger is honored not just with the legendary black armor, but also a unique pistol known as the Ranger Sequoia. Chambered in 4570, this absolute powerhouse revolver can put anything short of a Yaoguai down with a single round. It is also beautifully decorated with engravings of the Ranger logo, text stating "for honorable service," referencing their 20 years in the unit, and presumably their unit motto, "against all tyrants." While not explicitly stated to be such, considering their faction origins of anti-slavery and the context to which we find the texts on the pistol for their dedicated service, it stands to reason that it may just be. Also consider that they are parallels to the real-world American Army Special Forces, whose motto is to free the oppressed. Pretty on the nose, in my opinion. The mission set for veteran Rangers are slightly different than their patrol counterparts. While Ranger vets can be seen manning outposts and guard towers like the Patrol Rangers, they are utilized more for protection and direct action missions. Veteran Rangers typically comprise the majority of an NCR hit squad, either hunting down the courier for their egregious deeds against the Republic or assisting the courier in breaking through enemy lines. They are also chosen exclusively to guard the president of the NCR on his visit to Hoover Dam, showcasing their elite skill in threat detection and dispatchment. Upon arrival, the veteran Rangers are scattered throughout the various outposts in the Mojave and centered in Camp Golf, the Rangers' headquarters. It's notable that the amount of veteran Rangers that are deployed in the Mojave nearly equal the amount of patrol Rangers, implying that a not insignificant portion of the NCR Ranger organization are elite-level veterans equipped with the best weapons and armor the Republic can provide. These added numbers greatly increase the unit's combat effectiveness in the region, even if they are fated to stand around and look east all day, waiting for the Legion to make their move. From their humble origins as Shady Sands Security to the NCR's premier special operations unit, the Rangers have seen it all. A century of constant war has honed them into a sharpened blade, ready to be wielded against nations. Will they succeed yet again in the second battle for Hoover Dam, or crumble against the might of Caesar's Legion? That remains up to you, Courier. Choose wisely. A rapidly expanding imperialist nation-state, an insular, xenophobic, post-apocalyptic techno-cult, a decades-long military clash that devastated the survivors of the American Southwest. This is what occurs when strict, dogmatic principles and practices collide with stubborn, overexpansive, and uncompromising doctrine. My dear Wastelanders, I present you the NCR Brotherhood War. For the better part of a century, the Brotherhood of Steel and settlers of California maintained a relative peace, even assisting one another with regional conflicts wherever their ideals aligned. From skirmishes with an army of hostile supermutants to collisions with the technologically superior Enclave, the combined might of these two factions was unparalleled, a might which quickly led to their dominance over all of California. However, as with all things, this peaceful coexistence was bound to end. And end it did. In the years following the destruction of the Enclave oil rig and subsequent sacking of the Enclave's main operating land base, Navarro, the new California Republic were able to secure a wealth of advanced technology. Seeing this, in addition to the Republic's push into imperialism following the death of President Tandy, the Brotherhood of Steel became anxious that the NCR was following in the steps of the pre-war US government. It wasn't long after the Brotherhood's Elder Council decided that the growing nation around them were a true threat that any action was taken. The Brotherhood adopted a reactionary policy in response, proceeding to limit the flow of, and in some cases outright seize, any pre-war advanced technologies in the region. These actions caused a significant amount of pushback from their neighboring Wastelanders, especially in regards to energy weapons, as many energy weapons owned by the common Wastelander were either trophies of war or family heirlooms passed down from generation to generation since before the Great War. With an outraged populace, it would only be a matter of time before the new California clapped back. By this point, the NCR had long outgrown their humble origins in Shady Sands, with the combined power of the Boneyard, Dayglow, Maxon, and the Hub, in addition to their capital, as well as an entire military sharpened in their wars against both the Unity and Enclave. The Republic had become a true force to be reckoned with. Refusing to be pushed around by the likes of the Brotherhood, the NCR pushed back against them with their full might, setting in motion a series of events that would lead to the longest and bloodiest war the nation had yet to experience. Skirmishes broke out immediately between the two factions. The better trained and equipped Brotherhood forces were able to mop up the NCR resistance with little difficulty, quickly taking many key objectives in the war, while dealing crippling blows to the Republic. While this one-sided cleanup operation continued for the first few years of the war, eventually the scales would rebalance in favor of the NCR. Due to their insular nature, the Brotherhood of Steel refuses to recruit members from outside their own society. a factor that would prove detrimental to their war efforts. While their tactics and technology were far superior than that of the Republic, each and every member of their order is invaluable, meaning that the replacement of battlefield casualties would take years. Years that the Brotherhood didn't have. In order to meet the manpower requirements of the war, many knights and paladins were promoted from lesser ranks who lacked the expertise necessary to properly fill that role. Not only were the overall Brotherhood forces dwindling due to a lack of recruitment, but the effectiveness of their military was also diluting, leading to a perpetuating cycle which resulted in a stark increase of battlefield casualties. The NCR, on the other hand, took a note out of ancient Rome's playbook and reinforced their positions constantly throughout the war, utilizing mass recruitment and conscription to their advantage. Like Scipio versus Hannibal before them, it wouldn't matter how many casualties the Brotherhood inflicted on the NCR, as there was always a body to replace them. While the tier of soldier is much lower with this maneuver, all they needed for victory were more bodies with barrels pointed in the right direction. The Republic eventually came out on top through attrition, pushing the Brotherhood back and into the safety of their bunkers. While the tide may have turned in favor of the NCR, the Brotherhood refused to be defeated, proceeding to launch guerrilla operations against the Republic in an attempt to collapse them from within. These operations proved highly effective against their foe, and in a series of raids on the NCR's gold reserves, the Brotherhood managed to either steal, destroy, or otherwise render useless the vast majority of gold in Republic territory. As news of these attacks reached the various settlements within the region, citizens of the NCR began to panic and rushed to exchange as many of their dollars for what little gold remained. Once the remaining reserves had emptied out, the NCR dollar had become largely useless. The Republic, desperate to keep their economy afloat, countered this by enacting a new fiat currency. While this new tactic was successful in stabilizing economic proceedings in their core territory, a vast amount of damage had been done to their reputation and the common people's faith in their dollar. Wastelanders quickly came to distrust the stability of the NCR currency, especially those living out on the frontier. While this profound distrust made the stabilization of their economy an uphill battle, for some, it paved the way for opportunity. With the NCR's economy quickly caving in around them, merchant consortiums of the hub seized the opportunity and re-established their own currency to replace the Republic dollar, ye olde bottle cap. Tried, true, and backed by a standard measure of water, the bottle cap made a triumphant return to the wasteland. Due to its position in southeastern California bordering Nevada, the hub became an economic buffer zone between California and the recently annexed lands of the Mojave Wastes. With the economic crisis relatively resolved, and with significant casualties on both sides, the NCR Brotherhood War had stalemated, and it would stay this way for decades, with mass-scale skirmishes occurring well into the 2270s. This fragile balance of power would soon shift in the NCR's favor, with the location of and subsequent assaults on several Brotherhood bunkers. Using their superior numbers and tactical flexibility, the NCR was able to push deep into these bunkers, either destroying them outright or forcing the Brotherhood to self-destruct them in order to prevent them from falling into the NCR's hands. With 6 Brotherhood bunkers completely wiped out and the Brotherhood in retreat, tensions in California were beginning to die down. Meanwhile, tensions in the Mojave were just now coming to a head. Originally established sometime in the 2260s, the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel had operated uncontested in the region for years, under the controversial leadership of Elder Elijah. Upon rediscovering the Helios 1 solar power plant, Elijah made the executive decision to move the chapter's headquarters from the safety of the Hidden Valley bunker system to the power plant, against the objections of nearly every paladin within the order. The indefensible nature of the solar power plant painted a massive target on the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel, a detail that would not go unnoticed by the NCR. Upon expanding into the region, including the occupation of Hoover Dam and McCarran Airport, the NCR now had a sizable enough force to challenge the Mojave Brotherhood for control of the region, and would proceed to launch a series of attacks on the power plant. Despite Helios 1's poor defensibility, the chapter was able to put up a staunch defense against these NCR raids. For 2 years, the Brotherhood and NCR had stalemated in the Mojave, maintaining the fragile balance of power between them. But this would all change when the NCR launched Operation Sunburst, a mass-scale military offensive on the entrenched Brotherhood chapter. With forces equating between 15 and 20 to 1, the Republic's army would surround the solar power plant in an endless barrage of fire. The Brotherhood forces defended the plant valiantly, but were eventually worn down. After sustaining heavy casualties, with their elder having disappeared without a trace, the Brotherhood was forced into retreat, vacating their position at Helios 1, and falling back through the mountain pass to the Hidden Valley bunker system, where they would initiate a strict lockdown to prevent detection by the NCR. With Brotherhood chapters having been forced into hiding all around the American Southwest, the NCR shifted their focus to the new war they had found themselves embroiled in, the war against Caesar's Legion. The Republic would soon pull many veterans of the Brotherhood War to meet this new threat on the Eastern Front, allowing for a brief reprieve for the surviving Brotherhood chapters, a chance to breathe, collect themselves, and regroup. As of 2281, skirmishes still occur between the Brotherhood and the NCR out west. However, most chapters are too small and diluted to be of any real threat. While the Republic largely considers this war to have been won, it officially is still ongoing. Only time will tell what the future holds for these armor-clad knights of the post-apocalypse, be it survival or decimation. Perhaps a change in doctrine, change in leadership, or reinforcements from the growing Brotherhood chapter out east will be enough to shift the balance of power in their favor once again. As an army grows, the need for a structured system of organization increases exponentially. Establishing an efficient structure allows for the army to properly allocate resources, duties, and responsibilities amongst the troops. This is no different for our favorite republic of post-apocalyptic military expansionists. The new California Republic Army adopted a military ranking system identical to that of the pre-war government, sectioning the chain of command into commissioned officers, non-commissioned officers, and enlisted ranks. Civilians can join the Army as early as 16 years old, either by volunteer or by conscription, and they typically start out in the enlisted ranks. Through years of meritorious service, a soldier can be promoted up the ladder to that of a commissioned officer. The NCRA operates largely as an infantry force, with a few support battalions including an Air Force, Transportation Division, Field Preparation Division, and even some specialist battalions, such as those as the 1st Recon Sharpshooters and the Heavy Infantry units. Each of these divisions follows a standard ranking system set in place by the NCR, with the only exception being the NCR Rangers, which operate as a standalone entity in conjunction with, but not directly under the command of the new California Republic Army. The equipment used by the NCR Army is standard issue amongst all of its ranks, and consists of brown fatigues, a ballistic vest with hardened leather pauldrons, a steel helmet, cloth wraps, and goggles for better protection from the desert. The standard issue firearm for these ranks consists of an AR model service rifle chambered in 5.56, an M&A model pistol chambered in 9mm, and a combat knife. While this is standard issue, some exceptions are made for veteran units in strategic locations, such as Hoover Dam. And lastly, all troopers are issued identifying dog tags to be worn on their person at all times. At the very bottom of the chain of command are recruits, citizens of the NCR that have recently joined the NCRA either voluntarily or via conscription, and have yet to finish recruit training and receive their official ranks. There aren't any examples of a recruit in the Mojave Wasteland, as they are trained in California prior to being shipped out, and are only mentioned in dialogues. Once a recruit has completed training, they are promoted to the rank of private, also known as a PV-1. This rank comprises the backbone of the NCRA's infantry forces, and as such is the most common type of trooper we encounter in the Mojave campaign. They can be seen throughout the Mojave guarding the various outposts, relaxing in the barracks, conducting patrols, and wishing for a nuclear winter. When a soldier in this rank performs well, they may be promoted to the rank of PV-2. The purpose of this rank is to distinguish the more experienced troops from those that are fresh out of boot. The duties of a PV-2 are the same as that of a PV-1, with the only inherent benefit being a slight pay increase and a sliver of seniority. Once a PV-2 has reached their time and grade, they may be promoted to a private first class. A PFC shares in the duties of the previous PV1s and 2s, their rank merely representing more experience in the Army. When a PFC has shown exceptional leadership, military bearing, and spent enough time in grade to be considered a senior trooper, it's likely they will be promoted to a corporal. Corporals typically fulfill the role of squad leader, and are responsible for ensuring their squad is always squared away and combat effective. In roles that are less combat-oriented, a corporal will usually fulfill necessary logistical roles, such as Corporal Farber, who runs the mess hall in Camp McCarran. Beyond this, a corporal's main duties are to ensure that any orders from NCOs and officers are carried out, quickly and efficiently. Next up on the chain of command are sergeants. Sergeants make up the very beginning of the non-commissioned officer ranks and are comprised of soldiers who opted to not pursue a commission to officer. NCOs are largely responsible for assisting commissioned officers with operations at camp or in the field. That said, the duties of a sergeant can vary depending on the needs of the Army, with some having been seen managing supplies, establishing forward camps, and leading squads in combat operations. While the vast majority of sergeants are promoted from corporals, it is possible to reach the rank of sergeant from that of a private through merit, and if there are positions available. After a soldier has reached the rank of sergeant, it's relatively easy to move up the ladder from there. Most promotions from this rank merely require more time served, an open position to be available, and for that soldier to maintain good standing in their military career. After having served enough time and grade as a sergeant, the next promotion will be to that of a staff sergeant. The responsibilities of a staff sergeant are equivalent to that of a sergeant in the respect that they manage low-level logistics for their officers, and are responsible for carrying out that officer's orders, such as disciplinary measures on the troops, and report compilations. From here we see the first notable divergence from the ranks of the US military, this divergence being the lack of a sergeant first class rank. However, something interesting to note is that the NCR does employ a technical sergeant rank, which in real-world history, the technical sergeant was replaced by the US Army with the sergeant first class rank in 1948, right around when the Fallout timeline would have diverged from our own. Technical sergeants are largely responsible for operating important logistical roles involved in the maintenance of a military camp. These roles include radioing data to troops in the field, maintaining communication between operating camps, compilation of data either strategic or necessary to the day-to-day functions of the camp, and operation of skill-based technical equipment that would likely require special training to operate effectively. Next up in the hierarchy are Master Sergeants. Not much is known in regards to their duties, as the only mention of them in-game is on the Boulder City Memorial. But if their duties are equivalent to that of the real-world US Army, then it's likely that a Master Sergeant fulfills jobs that are largely logistical, such as that of a Tech Sergeant, albeit at a higher pay grade and with more responsibility. At the very tippity top of the NCR's non-commissioned officer ranks exists the First Sergeant. First Sergeants are primarily responsible for the operations of all the previous ranks under their command, and act as a right-hand man to their commanding officer. Rigid and disciplined, First Sergeants are the shining example of a perfect NCR soldier, leading by example and ensuring the camp's operations are conducted smoothly and efficiently. After First Sergeant would normally come the rank of Sergeant Major, however, this rank, like Sergeant First Class, doesn't exist within the game. Interestingly enough, in our real history, the rank of Sergeant Major had been used by the US all the way back to its founding in 1776. Where a sergeant major was appointed to the headquarters of each infantry battalion in the Continental Army. However, it fell out of use when the Army standardized its enlisted ranks in 1920, although the title was still assigned to senior NCOs of a battalion. The title wasn't reintroduced as a rank until 1958, after the Fallout timeline would have split off from our own. Following the ranks of non-commissioned officers are those of commissioned officers, with the first official rank being that of a second lieutenant. These ranks are made up of soldiers from the enlisted and NCO ranks that have pursued a commission and have been approved by the Army for leadership positions. Lieutenants are the most common rank of officer and can be found assigned to nearly every squad in all the various divisions of the NCRA, and as such fulfill a myriad of different roles as well as commanding a varied amount of troops depending on the task, unit, and goal. This is also the first time we see a difference in the uniforms. Officers still sport the standard issue NCR uniform and equipment, however, their headgear is no longer a steel helmet, having been replaced with a green beret donning a golden bear emblem to signify their status as a commissioned officer. This is true of all officers in the NCRA up to the rank of general. Once a second lieutenant spends their time in grade and keeps their service record clean, they may be promoted to first lieutenant. This rank's responsibilities is identical to that of the second lieutenant, with the moniker merely representing a more experienced officer who receives a little more pay, and sometimes commands a larger amount of troops. Once a first lieutenant has earned the right, they are promoted to captain. Captains are responsible for leading entire companies, as well as assisting their senior officers with logistical needs such as troop movements, camp maintenance, and troop discipline. Captains can be field officers like lieutenants, but are typically found stationed at camps, such as with Captain Curtis at Camp McCarran and Captain Parker, who operates Aerotech Refugee Camp. Next on the chain of command is the rank of major. Majors are responsible for leading large-scale operations, such as the policing action in Bitter Springs, which resulted in the massacring of the Great Khan tribals. They are also responsible for operating large bases and strategic outposts, such as Camp Forlorn Hope. These are typically the senior officers of an outpost and work hand-in-hand with their senior NCOs to carry out military operations in the area they are stationed. Directly above majors are full bird colonels. In real-world history, the rank of lieutenant colonel would be between major and full bird. However, this rank would often act as a terminal rank, as the full bird colonel was viewed as highly prestigious and reserved only for the best. However, lieutenant colonel is another rank that does not exist in the NCRA, and unlike the last two, was definitely in use during the time the Fallout timeline would have diverged from our own. Perhaps the NCR viewed the rank as unnecessary, either due to the lack of promotable majors rendering the rank obsolete, or perhaps they don't carry the luster of a full bird colonel the same way the pre-war military had. Whatever the case, lieutenant colonel is not currently in use by the NCRA. A full bird colonel is an officer who has greatly distinguished themselves as a major and earned the right to operate a position of great responsibility. Colonels are in charge of entire regions under military occupation, often being seen stationed at positions of strategic significance, such as Colonel Moore at Hoover Dam and Colonel Shue at Camp McCarran. The main responsibilities of a colonel involve strategizing and delegating commands to lower officers in order to carry out missions that strengthen the NCRA's foothold in a region. This could involve establishing diplomatic relations with local settlers, conducting combat operations on hostile tribes, establishing supply lines, etc. While a colonel is responsible for their assigned region, it's possible for other colonels to conduct operations outside of their specific sphere of influence without approval from the colonel in charge of that region. This example is seen with Colonel Moore carrying out operations in Freeside, which is officially under Colonel Shue's command. This lack of delineation allows for strategic flexibility throughout the various regions. The rank of colonel also comes with an added layer of security in the form of armed guards outside of that colonel's posts, helping to prevent any hostilities from reaching one of the NCRA's most valuable resources. Once a colonel has meritoriously distinguished themselves in a campaign, they may be promoted to general. Generals are top dog NCRA commanders, answering only to the main governing body of the NCR itself. Generals are in charge of entire theaters of war, such as the Mojave campaign, with their only responsibility being the division and delegation of a strategy that will not only win the war, but win favor with the people of the NCR. With promotion to general, we see a sharp change in uniform, with generals donning a dress uniform comprised of khaki pants, a khaki dress shirt, knee-high leather boots, a green tie and brown belt, a green peaked cover with a bear emblem, and golden stars signifying their rank on their cover and their shirt collar. The stars on a general's uniform represents a different rank for each, with 1 star generals being referred to as a brigadier general, 2 stars as major general, 3 stars as lieutenant general, 4 stars as simply general, and 5 stars as general of the army. And with that, we have covered every known rank in the main NCR Army's hierarchy.
The NCR, Caesar's Legion, 2 diametrically opposed governmental juggernauts inhabiting the western half of America. In the conflict we find ourselves during the events of Fallout New Vegas, the militaries of these mass monsters are engaged in a head-to-head deadlock over the Mojave wasteland, refusing to budge an inch to the other, setting up the player character as a driving force that shifts the balance of power to whomever they deem worthy. The territories controlled by each faction in-game grant us insight into the modus operandi of their military, but in-game evidence to the operation of their civilian state remains largely ambiguous, more so for the Legion than the NCR. However, despite this shortcoming, we are able to garner just enough information from New Vegas, as well as earlier Fallout titles, to paint a picture of the civilian territories of these factions. The stage has been set. Dear viewers, welcome to the Wasteland. To truly understand civilian life in the NCR and Legion territories, a brief understanding of what the factions represent to the grand narrative of the game must first be established. Both factions are a rehashing of the past, old world ideals revived and brought into this new post-apocalyptic era, with the new California Republic being analogous to the pre-war government, a republic with all of its benefits and all of its flaws. Meanwhile, Caesar's Legion is a rehashing of the ancient Roman military annexation state, specific to the operations under Gaius Julius Caesar during his campaigns in Gaul, what is now modern-day France, a true totalitarian dictatorship, where all must render unto Caesar. Just like their pre-war counterparts, civilians in the NCR are typically citizens of the country, or soon-to-be citizens that live in annexed territories, such as Vegas. Meanwhile, the civilians that occupy Legion territories are not citizens at all, as the Legion government doesn't support it. Rather, they are subjects. The life of the individual is vastly different for each faction as well. The subjects in Legion-controlled territories are not enslaved, as the Legion only enslaves tribals, with few exceptions. And they enjoy predominantly peaceful existences, with abundant food, water, electricity, trade, and safety, with their only real worry being running afoul of the Legion. In the NCR, the life of a citizen is much as we would expect for those in pre-war America. With the boom of industry returning to California, most citizens in the NCR work a 9-to-5 job, have the freedom to start their own enterprises, and vote in their governing body. For the most part, NCR citizens enjoy a peaceful existence as well, with the only caveat to that being the NCR's ever-inflating currency, crushing taxes, and the ever-looming fear of conscription causing some of the citizens to seek brighter horizons. The inner workings of the economic system of these factions has always been a point of contention due to the format of their currencies and the heated debate around taxation. As previously stated, the NCR citizens face heavy taxation under the NCR government, causing a deep wealth divide between their upper and lower class, while the subjects of the Legion do not apparently face taxation whatsoever. In a conversation with Dale Barton, an independent trader from Arizona, we learn that it's more profitable for him to trade in Legion territories, as he's heavily taxed when trading with the NCR, not to mention the added cost of hiring security to protect him on the lawless NCR border. Dale Barton's account, while compelling, doesn't offer us much insight as to whether the subjects of the Legion territories pay taxes or not, due to this conversation being about the business of trade specifically, as well as his complaint levied against the NCR regarding the amount of taxation he faces when trading with them, implying the possibility that he has to pay taxes in Legion territory as well, albeit much less. Based on how the Romans handle taxation in their territories, it is my belief that subjects still have to pay taxes to the Legion in order to fund their campaigns. This money is then put in a treasury and used to refurbish and expand upon the infrastructure of towns, cities, roads, etc., and to pay the troops, who then buy food, water, and supplies, keeping the money in active circulation. Since the Legion is primarily a raiding force, they would be able to keep taxes low in their territories, as the majority of supplies would be requisitioned whilst on campaign. And since we almost always find legionaries carrying denarii, it's safe to assume that they get pay of some sort. This is nearly a mirror of how the NCR conducts their economics, with the necessity for higher tax rates coming from a myriad of factors, such as political corruption, greater demand for upkeep of a standing army, increase in maintenance cost of infrastructure, and replenishment of the treasury after Vegas bleeds them dry. While the NCR's fiat currency maintains its value in the core of its territory, its worth has over-halved on the frontier, sinking its value when converting to caps and crippling the NCR's purchasing power outside of its own territory. In contrast, the Legion adopted the ancient custom of self-backed currency, opting to generate coins out of precious metals. This type of currency was also in use by the NCR prior to the destruction of their gold reserves during the Brotherhood War. The inherent benefit of this type of currency is due to precious metals maintaining their value even in the event of the Legion collapsing, so long as human society still values gold and silver. And this is not the case with the fiat currency, such as that currently in use by the NCR, as fiat currency is backed only by a government's word. Once that government collapses, the value of the dollar ceases to exist. While the NCR dollar continues to lose its value on the frontier, the Legion currency remains stable, actively maintaining its full value inside and outside of its territory, ultimately resulting in the Legion having more buying power than the NCR in the Mojave and other non-Legion territories. The stability introduced into America with the formation of these factions has led to a new era of prosperity for both. While little is known about how prosperous cities in the East are, we know of at least a few that are doing well. From conversations with Raul, our old ghoul companion, we learned that Tucson was a thriving settlement before the time of Caesar, and it's speculated that the city prospered even more due to the Legion wiping out the raiders that had plagued the city. Furthermore, cities such as Phoenix and Flagstaff are confirmed to have long been under Legion control, with Flagstaff even acting as the Legion's capital. Based on the stability introduced into the region with the arrival of Caesar's Legion and the economics Caesar has established, we can assume that they are well on their way to being equally as prosperous to those in the West, and we know for certain that the West has benefited greatly. By the events of New Vegas, the NCR has re-entered the modern age with the re-implementation of industrial manufacturing for arms, armor, vehicles, tools, equipment, etc. They have also seen massive success with livestock and agriculture, leading to food markets being a common sight yet again. The citizens work jobs and are able to buy property, and nearly everything inside their core territory has been scavenged, leading to the picture of a clean, well put together, and prosperous community. With a confirmed population of over 700,000 by 2241 and an estimated population of over 1 million by the events of New Vegas, the NCR is considered to be the largest nation in the post-war United States and is often viewed as significantly larger than that of the territories of every other post-war faction, Legion included. Unfortunately, there isn't any evidence of Legion-controlled territories' total population to compare against. Entering into conjecture, it is my belief that Legion territory has an equal civilian population to that of the NCR, due to their empire spanning 4 states, all with several massive cities, as well as the Legion's reluctance to conscript their subjects, meaning they are safe from harm and allotted all resources they need to safely have families. And if they don't have more population as of yet, it's highly likely that they will in time. The NCR's total population is staggering, but it should be noted that they suffered heavily from years of infighting, a factor that is currently non-existent in Legion territory. The Brotherhood War killed thousands of NCR citizens, with the 3-decade-long expansion into the Mojave killing thousands upon thousands more. The only factor that I believe leads to the NCR having more population than the Legion is their age. The NCR has been around for 92 years, while the Legion was formed a mere 34 years ago. Obviously, with time comes greater possibility for numbers, but the sheer amount of people who survive to exist in Legion territories shouldn't be underestimated. Another point of contention when referencing the population of these lands is the Legion's treatment of tribals, being famous for eradicating many tribes outright, which would obviously decrease the area's population. And this is wholly accurate to some degree. While the Legion seeks to assimilate tribes, there have been several who have proved too debased to be assimilated. An example of this can be seen with the Fiends. Caesar uses their services in battle against the NCR, but should he win the final battle of Hoover Dam, he opts not to integrate them, and instead eradicates them due to their over-reliance on chems. What's not often noted is that the modern NCR doesn't usually absorb tribes at all, often opting to eradicate them outright. In fact, this exact draconian method is what led the would-be President Kimball to massive popularity as a military general, and the citizens of the NCR definitely did not complain about the increase in security in their territory. It's widely known that the NCR experiences more safety hazards than a country of their size should. What's not commonly known, however, is that these security risks, such as the aforementioned tribes of raiders, occur largely on their border. The core NCR territories are safe from the majority of threats that do plague the wasteland, with a few exceptions being mafia rule over New Reno, various violent gangs in the bigger cities, and the odd band of highwaymen looking to make a quick buck off a passing Brahmin wrangler. Crime is handled by a judicial system much like it was in pre-war America, so any crimes such as theft, assault, or even murder are investigated by the police, an arrest is made, the criminal is tried, and when found guilty, imprisoned. In Legion territories, all criminal organizations and most individual criminals have been killed or driven off, with the majority of hostile wildlife completely eradicated. So safe in Legion territory that traders can often travel freely without guards, and when someone does step out of line, they are dealt with harshly and immediately, as Caesar does not allow for such delinquency. One interesting point I would like to open up a dialogue on are the religious beliefs of the civilians within these territories. We know Caesar's legion follows the cult of Mars, but it's unclear if this religion is even taught to those outside of the legion, let alone worshipped. I can't imagine it wouldn't at least be taught, as everyone who believes in Caesar's holy mission would make a valuable ally to his cause. But to put it bluntly, this is pure conjecture. As for the NCR, they don't have a state-run religion due to their principles of religious freedom, and we don't have any evidence of a specific religion practiced by the majority of citizens. But we are aware of a few religions practiced within their borders, including Dharma, the original religious beliefs of Shady Sands, Habology, likely Mormonism due to the NCR's proximity to New Canaan, and various cults worshipped by gangs like the Vipers. In the world of Fallout, we are presented with a myriad of factions, each showcasing their own system of governance to control their individual territories, from political ideology to economic process and industry. With the NCR and Caesar's Legion, we have two of the largest, most successful factions in the canon of the series, controlling a fourth of the entire landmass of the mainland United States, and clashing in the largest and deadliest conflict this country has seen in 2 centuries. Whomever the victor, it's undoubtable that the lands of each faction and the civilians contained within will be irrevocably changed forever.
The NCR, Caesar's Legion, 2 diametrically opposed juggernauts vying for control over the bombed-out ruins of the American Southwest. Their militaries, endlessly forging paths for their interests, meet at a critical junction just east of Las Vegas. It's here at Hoover Dam where the 2 armies would meet for the first time, with the NCR claiming victory over their foe. Confident enough to rest on their laurels, the NCR fortified their positions along the Colorado River, returning to business as usual. Caesar, on the other hand, did not take this defeat lightly and began a mass restructuring of his army to meet the challenge the Republic posed. With a new legate in place and a new battle strategy, the Legion would launch a series of counterattacks, pushing the NCR entirely off the eastern bank of the river. With this natural border in place, the factions maintained a relative stalemate until 2281, where their armies would meet under the Nevada sun once again. The 2 nations represent opposite sides of the same coin, thesis and antithesis, lacking a common ground for which they can coexist. The new California Republic's ideals of democracy, equality, and civility have paved the way for a safe and welcoming nation, but quickly led the Republic to internal corruption, debasement, and imperialism. With former general and now president of the NCR, Aaron Kimball, having achieved war hero status after massacring the tribes of the Sierra Nevadas and Bullhead City. Witnessing the inherent flaws in the NCR from an early age, the once citizen of the Republic, Caesar, formed his legion in opposite to their ideals. Caesar's legion was, from the start, a nationalist, imperialist, totalitarian, homogenous nation, putting a person's utility to the state above that of their personal liberties. In doing so, Caesar has maintained power over his subjects and nearly eliminated all corruption amongst his legion. Utilizing those under his rule to their full potential has led to a highly elite and specialized military, the likes of which the wasteland has never seen. Each army is organized into a specialized rank and file to fulfill their logistical needs. The NCR utilizes a ranking structure of pre-war America, separating its ranks into the categories of enlisted troopers, non-commissioned officers, and commissioned officers. While the NCRA is largely meritocratic, there have also been some documented cases of soldiers in the NCR receiving and maintaining their rank due to their connections in the government. A prime example is General Oliver, who was stated to only have his rank by account of his connection to President Kimball, and not due to his accomplishments or strategic ability, which has been heavily criticized as lacking by friends of the Republic and foes alike. The Legion, on the other hand, is a strict meritocracy, where promotions only occur through an individual's achievements and bravery in battle. While gaining Caesar's favor may allow a legionary to bypass the traditional chain of promotions, doing so is incredibly difficult and requires an immense feat. Such as in the case of Vulpes Inculta, who capitalized on enemies' oversight by breaking ranks and leading his legionaries through a hole in their defenses, an action which, under normal circumstances, would have landed him on a cross, but due to his actions leading to victory over the enemy, landed him on Caesar's good side instead. After gaining his lord's favor, Vulpes was spared crucifixion, and instead promoted to the ranks of frumentarii. In order to capitalize on recruitment, the minimum age for enlistment into the NCR Army is 16 years old, with very few ever volunteering at this age. By the conflict of 2281, the majority of the NCR infantry is conscripted into the military, typically from farming or ranching communities, and with a near even split between male and female troopers. After they swear into service, the recruit is then sent to boot camp for 2 weeks, where they learn basic military skills before deploying. Due to the majority of recruits growing up farming and ranching, most already know their way around a firearm, and likely spend their time learning other military basics, like marching and small unit tactics. When the Legion needs to bolster their ranks, they do so by 2 methods of action. The first and most abundant is through the conquering and assimilation of tribals into Legion ranks. The second is through the mechanism of forced breeding to create generations of soldiers growing up knowing only the art of war. Due to Caesar's emphasis on utility, men and women are separated into delineated roles, with men making 100% of the Legion's fighting force, and women filling in various support roles that keep them out of the fighting, including religious figures such as priestesses. Legion training is intense and brutal, with their conditioning routines having been compared by Colonel Moore as on par with, if not greater than that of NCR Rangers, a branch which Colonel Moore had personally served in, leading to legionaries who are extremely tough, fast, and agile. Recruits are also trained to ignore pain and follow their orders to the letter, whether that's rushing a position under fire with a dull machete as their only weapon, or ending their own life to avoid capture. Their ferocity is so intense that the aforementioned Colonel Moore has her troops training to fight bigger and stronger opponents, in addition to strict orders to fight the Legion at a distance, no matter the circumstance. While the average NCR recruit trains for only 2 weeks before a deployment, where they go on to largely patrol and wait for the next conflict, a legionary's training is non-stop. In the meat grinder that is Caesar's Legion, one cannot afford to fall behind. This endless training leads to a culture where true battles become breaks in training, allowing legionaries a brief respite in order to test their skills against an adversary. The bulk of the NCR infantry is equipped with minimal equipment, including desert fatigues, an armored ballistic vest, likely steel, and a helmet, with standard-issue pre-war mass-produced service rifles chambered in 5.56 and a pistol sidearm chambered in 9mm. While this is standard issue for all ranks up to colonel, many units away from the front lines use various assortments of lower-tier guns like 9mm submachine guns, varmint rifles, caravan shotguns, and more. It's also not uncommon for NCR troops to carry a combat knife for close-quarter encounters. The Legion infantry is equipped with the most basic of gear, consisting of Legion fatigues and pre-war sporting equipment, including leather football pads and catcher vests, as well as football and baseball helmets. Due to the meritocratic nature of the Legion, the higher a legionary's rank, the more gear and better weapons they will acquire, with the previously mentioned equipment acting as the foundational protective gear. As a legionary climbs the ladder to veteran, they add shin guards and an arm guard to this ensemble, with added nails protruding from their pauldrons to provide that extra damage to anyone who gets too close. Once a legionary reaches the rank of Centurion, they receive the best armor the Legion can offer, with most opting for patchwork armor forged in the fires of their conquests, and others opting for something a little more protective in the visage of their legate. With added accomplishments comes better firepower. Recruit legionaries are often seen wielding basic firearms and melee weapons like varmint rifles, makeshift spears, and machetes, while veterans can be seen wielding power fists and carbines. While the Legion is heavily criticized for their use of such rudimentary arms and armor, it's not without purpose. A large part of the Legion's strategy involves overwhelming fortified positions and dismantling them from within. Having troops in lighter armor who can close the distance on a position quickly and terrify their enemy by chopping into them goes a long way to not only secure objectives, but strip away any sense of comfort a trooper might have in their position at a distance, a tactic which has been used to great effect against the NCR. The NCR and Legion share a similar squad size and spread, with each squad composed of 4 troops, typically led by a non-commissioned officer or a decanus in the case of the Legion. NCR weapon spread is pretty uniform on the front lines, with most patrolling squads all wielding service rifles and standard issue equipment. Legion patrol squads have more diverse spread to cover various scenarios. Squads of recruits are often seen wielding machetes, spears, pistols, and rifles, and veteran squads seen wielding hunting rifles, shotguns, and power fists, allowing them to combat foes at long, medium, and short ranges. During the final battle for Hoover Dam, Legion squads are led by a Centurion, typically wielding a marksmanship carbine or squad automatic rifle. NCR squads stay relatively the same during this battle, with their change in equipment reflecting more long-distance options, such as sniper rifles. Amongst the rank and file of each military are subdivisions of specialty units. For the NCR, one of these specialty units are the 1st Recon Sharpshooters. Distinguished by their red berets, they are primarily responsible for reconnaissance and the elimination of high-profile targets. Although it isn't uncommon to see them attached to units to provide fire support, such in the case of the Bitter Springs Massacre. The NCR also boasts a division of heavy troopers who utilize salvage power armor and heavy weapons from the NCR's war with the Brotherhood of Steel. Although the salvage power armor is slow and clunky due to having their servos ripped out, the heavy troopers are capable of absorbing large amounts of small arms fire. Combined with their common use of miniguns and incinerators, these units make for truly deadly enemies. Due to their limited numbers, heavy troopers typically act as guards for high-profile leaders or at positions of strategic importance. In addition to this, the NCR also utilizes the skills of the NCR Rangers, who work in tandem with, but are not directly under the command of the Army. The New California Republic Rangers act as scouts and light infantry. They most commonly are found in outposts, typically keeping watch over a troublesome faction, or acting as the first line of defense against a Legion invasion. Rangers are elite, akin to pre-war special forces, and are often sent on dangerous operations behind enemy lines. After 20 years of dedicated service, a Ranger will earn the designation of Veteran, allowing them to don the iconic black armor and Ranger Sequoia. Veteran Rangers are the best of the best and are chosen for the most dangerous missions, including assassinations of highly lethal targets. Their prowess is so great that even President Kimball chose them to protect him over the NCR's own powered armor units. The Legion also utilize a wide variety of specialized roles, with the most notorious among them being the Frumentarii. This unit acts as the Legion's eyes and ears, and they are everywhere. The Frumentarii are handpicked by Caesar and are heavily trained in espionage for infiltration missions. Disguised as caravanners, soldiers, and more, the Frumentarii's goal is not only collecting valuable intel for Caesar, but also to disrupt and destabilize the enemies of the Legion, a task that is handled with extreme efficiency. It is among the rank of the Frumentarii that one typically is chosen for assassination missions, such in the case of dispatching President Kimball. That said, if a target is dangerous enough, a squad may be hand-selected to carry out the mission instead. These hit squads will typically include Centurions, Vexillarius, and Praetorians. The Praetorian is another special role within the Legion. Praetorians are brutal, merciless conquerors, handpicked by Caesar to join his personal guard. One must have earned the right to be a Centurion before they qualify for selection, and in order to pass the selection process, they must fight a current Praetorian to the death with their bare hands. Due to their specialization in hand-to-hand combat and their elite skill, Praetorians are often found guarding important figures within the Legion, such as Legatus Lanius and Caesar himself, with the odd occurrence that one is selected for an assassination mission. The tactics of the two factions vary wildly in their scope, purpose, and execution. In the field, the NCRA prioritizes the fortification of large forts and compounds from which to conduct operations in the surrounding area. By utilizing communication with the Ranger outposts dotted around the Mojave, the Army aims to grasp real-time movements occurring in the region. Against an enemy like the Legion, accurate intel is absolutely vital, and distance between the trooper and the oncoming Legion forces is crucial. Most NCR encampments accomplish this by erecting towers and snipers' nests in order to detect and engage any enemies as they approach a compound, allowing for the troopers to mobilize by the time an assault force arrives. The NCR's strength lies in their mass-scale assault capabilities, as can be seen with the raid on Helios 1 that decimated the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. The more hands they have on deck, the greater their chances for success. The Legion, on the other hand, has several additional tactics that they utilize. The Legion's primary combat strategy involves overwhelming their enemies with numbers and brutality, either scaring their enemies into freezing, fleeing, or surrendering. They also primarily rely on raids to weaken their enemy and their resolve prior to launching a full-scale combat operation. Due to the nature of this style of combat, many Legion encampments are minimalist and nomadic, lacking permanent walls or gates, and are comprised mostly of tents, sleeping bags, and whatever buildings were there when they arrived. While the Legion is an immensely strong combat force, they also excel in subversive tactics, whittling down their opponents little by little until they break from within. With a vast network of spies and counterintelligence agents, the Legion is easily able to infiltrate groups, sabotage them, or convince them to join their cause. A clear example can be noted with Captain Curtis, a Frumentarius who gained a high position within the NCR Military and actively sabotages their operations by providing the Legion with classified intel. Or with Carl, a Frumentarius emissary who convinced the Great Khans to ally with the Legion for the upcoming Battle of Hoover Dam. The Legion also deploys shady combat tactics, such in the case of using young ones to lure the enemy into dropping their guard before getting blown back by explosives, positioning mines under injured troopers to draw their comrades into an equally terrible fate, decimating Ranger outposts and towns in a brutalist fashion deep within enemy territory, frightening and demoralizing the opposing side. As the conflict drags on, this campaign of terror takes its toll on the soldiers involved, leading to an increased need for medical practitioners. The NCR employs field doctors at their camps to treat the wounded. These doctors use modern medical tools, medicines, practices, and procedures in order to save the lives of those serving. In some cases, such as the refugee camp at Bitter Springs, NCR doctors may even assist with treating psychological conditions in their patients, like post-traumatic stress disorder. The Legion also employs doctors, however, they aren't medical doctors in the traditional sense like you see with the NCR or with the followers of the Apocalypse. These doctors are more accurately described as herbalists. While largely ignorant of modern medicinal practices, the Legion does have extensive knowledge of tribal remedies that provide benefits equal to, if not surpassing that of pre-war chems. Hydra can cure broken limbs, bitter drink will cure minor injuries in a short period of time, and healing poultice will do both efficiently and quickly. When a legionary has gained Caesar's favor, he may even allow them to be treated with his autodoc, a powerful gift in a society that shuns modern medical practices. In order to provide these remedies to those in need, each faction will have to get the materials to the front lines via supply chains. Each faction is supplied from their respective nations, with the NCRs coming from California and the Legions coming from Arizona. After the Battle of Willow Beach and Arizona Spillway, where the Legion pushed the NCR west of the Colorado, the Legion has maintained a stable, uninterrupted supply route to the fort through this conflict. The same can't be said for the NCR. Due to the unforeseen destruction at the Divide, one of the two supply lines into the Mojave from California were completely cut off, forcing the NCR to push all of their supplies through the Long 15. And with all the wasteland horrors actively preying on this stretch of road, not to mention the Legion raids on supply caravans, several supply interruptions have occurred, leading to minicamps going without food, water, ammunition, medicine, and reinforcements. While the New California Republic boasts divisions of mechanized units that could easily navigate this supply issue, they are scantily utilized due to several factors. A large one for the mechanized cavalry and supply division is a lack of parts, mainly tires and other degradable necessities. This greatly limits their ability to expand the division and ensures that each and every truck is highly valuable as they are near irreplaceable. This is also why the NCR doesn't utilize their Air Force outside of special operations. Not only is their supply of vertibirds extremely limited, But due to an inability to produce these aircrafts on a significant scale, the value of every vertibird is too high to warrant the risk of one being shot out of the air. This is likely why they are being held in reserve at the Long 15. Both factions also utilize artillery cannons at the final battle of Hoover Dam. Due to their limited use and lack of specific unit to operate them, it may be that these are also an extremely rare and hard to reproduce weapon. In fact, Legion forces aren't even able to use their respective cannon unless they locate a replacement firing mechanism for it, the only known one to exist in the Mojave having been locked tightly within the walls of Nellis Air Force Base. Behind a tribe of recluses with missile launchers, a 12-foot tall fence with a locked gate, and an endless artillery bombardment. Needless to say, the firing mechanism will not be able to be obtained without a significant effort. The Legion does not utilize vehicles at all. It's often assumed that this is because the Legion is anti-technology, but that is not the case. We can see through the Legion's use of artillery and attempted purchase of energy weapons from the Van Graffs that they are not averse to technology in this sense. Caesar values the human sacrifice as a moral virtue, and as such doesn't want his soldiers to be replaced with robots, even if it means he will win a conflict. To Caesar, it's not a true victory unless it's achieved through blood. It may be that there are not as many salvageable vehicles in the Southwest as there are on the West Coast, or it may be that Caesar doesn't feel like he needs them, opting instead to have his soldiers force march in order to sharpen their resolve. A common point of contention has always been centered around the amount of soldiers each faction has in the Mojave at the time of the conflict, with many arguing that the NCR has a tiny fraction of their military in the Mojave campaign and that the Legion has all of their forces actively in the region, further leading them to believe that if the NCR deployed their full military, they would crush the Legion. Or even if the Legion does win the battle for the dam, they wouldn't be able to invade the NCR due to the majority of the NCR army existing in the Republic's core territory. While a hopeful sentiment, we can see that this estimate is hopelessly misplaced. Prior to the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, the NCR had its veteran Rangers pulled back on assignment, and their heavy troopers protecting the lands of the Brahmin barons that lined their pockets. But they aren't the only ones who are off the front lines. Before the Second Battle, the Legion veterans had not even arrived in the region from the east yet. Following behind them was Legatus Lanius, who had his own army that he brought with him. Considering the NCR has to conscript as heavily as they are showcases that they are in desperate need for manpower, and implies that a sizable chunk of their force is tied up in the Mojave campaign, as it would only take a tiny fraction of an entire army to maintain peace along the NCR's borders, with the core territory kept peaceful by their civilian police force. In addition to this, there aren't any other wars that the NCR are actively engaged in, with the exception of the final embers of their war with the Brotherhood of Steel. A war, mind you, that occurred over the course of decades prior to encountering Caesar's Legion, and dealt a massive blow to the NCR's economy, population, and military power. Furthermore, since the president himself is so heavily invested into this admittedly unpopular campaign, it lends even more credence to the NCR pulling the majority of their forces for this conflict. Kimball can't afford to lose this war, lest he lose his next election. Regardless of how many troops are in the region prior to the Second Battle for Hoover Dam, it's clear that the militaries on both sides commit all available forces to fight, with the NCR pulling both their heavy troops and veteran Rangers into the conflict, and the Legion committing enough forces that Linnaeus is worried about instability arising in the east due to manpower pulled for this campaign. Should we estimate, the NCR has 2 colonels and a single general in the Mojave. A colonel typically oversees up to 5,000 soldiers each, with a 4-star general commanding all troops and operations that fall within their geographical area, leading to a combined infantry force of 10,000 by the events of the Second Battle of Hoover Dam. As for the Legion, legates historically command a legion of 5,000 men, in addition to their servants. With a single legate at the battle and at least 1 legion under Caesar's command at the fort, it's safe to assume that the militaries on both sides have near equal combat numbers of 10,000 infantry each, not including the Legion's Great Khan auxiliaries and the NCR's Rangers. During the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, the NCR commits one of their brigades to the defense of the dam, while the other defends their positions in the Mojave, positions which come under attack from Legion forces and allies alike, such as the Fiends who attack Camp McCarran and the Omertas who attack the Strip. It's likely Caesar keeps several reserves at the fort as well in order to reinforce the dam, while the NCR reserves would be kept within the dam as part of General Oliver's defensive strategy. allowing troopers to reinforce their positions throughout the power plant. When the smoke clears, there can only be one victor, and depending on your actions, Courier, will depend on which direction the scales will tip, deciding once and for all which banner will shadow the Mojave for decades to come.
The New California Republic is a massive, state-spanning, post-apocalyptic nation formed in the wastelands of the American Southwest. The faction began as a humble settlement just north of the ruins of the Great Boneyard. It's in this bud of life that the New California Republic, as we know it, takes its first steps. The settlement of Shady Sands was founded by a group of vault dwellers from the nearby Vault 15, using a GEC, also known as the Garden of Eden creation kit. This allowed Shady Sands to generate and utilize vital resources needed to survive in the inhospitable wasteland. Although it wasn't just this boost in water and agriculture that led the settlement to success, they benefited from another extremely valuable resource: philosophy. In the early days, the settlement of Shady Sands followed the Gospel of Dharma, a religious figure from Vault 15 who assisted in settling the town. Much like the religion that his name is derived from, Dharma preached the values of honesty, generosity, and patience, all of which are ideals that are sewn into the fundamental fabric of Shady Sands and exemplified through its leader, Aradesh. Aradesh is a direct descendant of the vault dwellers that had founded the town, and as a younger man had lived in the vault himself. During the events that followed their settlement, he stood out amongst his peers for his leadership, and sometime between the years of 2142 and 2161 had ascended to the leader of the community. It was with Aradesh that the seed which would grow into the New California Republic was planted. By the year 2161, Shady Sands was riddled with headaches, from increasingly aggressive rad scorpion attacks to hostile raids from wastelanders. The town's future was looking bleak. However, Aradesh did not falter. He began to establish policies of isolation and internal development in hopes of creating a self-sufficient community to better repel these raider attacks. The raiders, known to us as Khans, did not take kindly to Aradesh's defiance, however, and while his back was turned, abducted his young daughter. Devastated, Aradesh sought the help of an outsider who had recently returned from eradicating the rad scorpions that had plagued this wasteland paradise. This outsider is known to us as the Vault Dweller from Vault 13. The Vault Dweller accepted the task, and while the details of how things transpired vary from account to account, he managed to free Tandy from the merciless grip of the Khans.
Many sticks can be broken. A bundle cannot.
The proverbs of Dharma reverberated through the mind of Aradesh as he observes the growing commerce and prosperity between Shady Sands and its surrounding communities. In the years that follow, Aradesh proposes the formation of a new nation, hearkening back to the proverb of strength through unity. This proposal proves extremely popular with the people of the wasteland, propelling Aradesh's idea into reality. In the year 2186, Shady Sands formed a governmental council in order to draft a constitution for this new nation. Several years of deliberation and diplomacy ensued, and in 2189, the New California Republic, consisting of 5 separate Federation states, was voted into existence. At this time, Aradesh was voted in to become the NCR's first president. He served as president for 7 years while actively working to unify Southern California, as well as to protect and stabilize the region. His work continued until 2196, where he mysteriously disappeared whilst on an expedition in search of the fabled Vault 13, the home of a long-lost ally. While the NCR had launched search and rescue efforts into the wasteland, it would prove to be fruitless. Aradesh was never recovered, and once the NCR accepted his fate, he was declared dead, and a new president rose to power. Aradesh's beloved daughter Tandy was unanimously voted into presidency in 2196. This may come as a shock to some, but to the Wastelanders, it was an obvious decision. Tandy acted as the driving force which propelled Shady Sands into power during her father's time as the community's leader. She had helped Aradesh build the NCR, brick by brick since the early days following her rescue from the Khans by the Vault Dweller. She assisted Aradesh in expanding Shady Sands through diplomacy and commerce. She established trade lines between Junktown and the Hub, and even took part in dominating the Brahmin trade. To the Wastelanders, if anyone could lead this new nation into prosperity, it was Tandy. Tandy served as president of the NCR for a staggering 10 full terms up until her death at the age of 103. This ended the longest presidency in NCR history, having lasted 52 total years. Tandy's administration encouraged the growth of this new government from the 5 federation states of Shady Sands, the Boneyard, the Hub, Dayglow, and Maxon into the new California Republic as we know them today. Her policies largely focused on peaceful expansion through diplomacy, the rebuilding of pre-war infrastructure, clearing roadways and rail lines, developing and manufacturing transportation, fostering trade relations within and outside of NCR territory, building fortifications at strategic centers, and dealing with any threats to the nation swiftly and with force if necessary. As the NCR began to spread, it encountered opposition to its north, with the metropolis of Vault City and its idealistic opposite in New Reno both refusing to join the Republic. While both of these factions were juggernauts in the northern expansion, Tandy wasn't terribly concerned about them at the time. Rather, the more pressing matter was involving the town of Redding. Redding controls and operates a gold mine, a resource that the NCR values highly as they use it to back their new paper currency. Vault City and the families that control Reno also have their eyes trained on controlling this mine, as he who controls the currency controls the wasteland. The NCR opted for a diplomatic approach to winning over the town, as a military occupation would be too costly due to Redding's distance from the main NCR territory. However, this is interrupted by the Mordino family, as they begin to ship Jet, a new Kim, into the city to force the miners of Redding to rely on them, thus winning them over to the side of New Reno. Vault City also sought to ally with Redding, but instead of getting the miners hooked on Kims, they opted for a more aggressive approach, and hired a group of mercenaries to force the town into an alliance. The Triumvirate, each with swords drawn, each laying claim to a line in the sand while drought and food shortages wilted the valleys around them. That was until an unlikely ally tipped the scales of balance in favor of the new California Republic, thus vindicating Tandy's political philosophy up to this point. In 2241, the NCR came into conflict with a group of raiders occupying Vault 15, which had previously belonged to the NCR and contained computer parts that they desired. These raiders, known as the New Khans, moved into Vault 15 after the NCR's last salvage mission there. Tandy was quite familiar with these raiders, as their predecessors had been the same Khans that had kidnapped her in her youth. However, she was unaware that they were occupying the vault at this time. The surface area around the vault was occupied by Wastelanders, who didn't know that the Khans were raiders, but instead were under the impression that the Khans were repairing the vault so that it could be inhabited by both groups. Due to this, the squatters refused to vacate the area when the NCR attempted to retrieve the computer parts, and the existence of the Khans went unnoticed by the new California Republic. It was during this conflict that a tribal from a village called Arroyo to the north arrived at the NCR capital, formerly known as Shady Sands. Tandy recruited this tribal, known to us as the Chosen One, to retrieve the computer parts from the vault. While many accounts of the following events are contradictory, we know for certain that the Chosen One succeeded in retrieving the computer parts, as well as brokering a peace deal between the squatters and the NCR. This peace deal revealed the existence of the new Khan raiders to the NCR. In exchange for food, shelter, and education for the squatters, the Republic would take military action against the Khans and put their reign of terror on local caravans to an end. This deal vindicated Tandy's belief that peaceful and diplomatic expansion was a worthwhile tactic in the increasingly hostile northern expansion. Vault 15 now acted as NCR's foothold in the area from which to operate, and the squatters became successful and productive members of the Republic's society. This moment would end up shaping the policies of Tandy's administration and the new California Republic for decades to come. In the end, the Chosen One would play a pivotal role in the expansion of the new California Republic, between brokering the deal at Vault 15 to securing Redding's alliance to the NCR, to eventually crippling the Enclave at the Poseidon oil rig, allowing the Republic to launch an offensive military operation against the Enclave remnants at Navarro, defeating them, and securing weapons and vertibirds for the Republic. Not only this, but the NCR was able to forge an alliance with New Reno, and use them to bully Vault City into joining the Republic. With these juggernauts subjugated into states of the new California Republic, and many smaller settlements joining the fold in the following years, the NCR cemented a firm foothold in the region, with all of California now unified under the banner of the Bear. The Tandy administration had pushed for this idea of peaceful expansion, implementing many rules and strategies along the way, such as diplomacy with hostile tribes and groups before military action, humane treatment of prisoners of war, and limiting the number of cattle and acreage a single person can own. Unfortunately, Tandy would not live forever, and in the year 2248, she passed away at the impressive age of 103, being succeeded by her vice president, Joanna Tibbet. Tibet's administration had lasted 5 years. She had served out the remainder of Tandy's term and was re-elected for a term of her own. Unfortunately for Tibbet, her presidency would end in disaster. In the year 2253, 38 of the NCR's citizens were massacred by raiders on the frontier of the Mojave wasteland. Tibbet hesitated to react to this massacre, and the Republic Congress and Senate reacted by removing her from office via a vote of no confidence. After more than 50 years of effective leadership, the citizens of the NCR had a clear idea of what they sought in a leader. And while peaceful expansion was the way of Tandy, the NCR would opt for more direct methods moving forward, as they valued peaceful negotiations in the face of violence less and less. After Tibbet was voted out of office, President Wendell Peterson took her place. This marked a shift in the political ideology of the new California Republic and set into motion a series of events that would lead the NCR from being a mostly peaceful federation of states to a plutocratic imperialist nation. President Peterson reacted swiftly to threats with military action, both inside and outside of the NCR's borders. Shortly after taking office, he deployed 3 battalions of NCR troops to occupy the Mojave wasteland, as well as ordering military action against the Brotherhood of Steel, starting the longest and bloodiest war that the NCR had ever seen up to this point. The Brotherhood War was the culmination of half a decade of skirmishes between the two factions over disagreements on how technology should be used. The Brotherhood, wary of the growing nation-state around them, imposed a reactionary policy with the goal to seize and control the access to advanced technologies in order to prevent the NCR from making the same mistakes the pre-war government had. The NCR under the Tandy administration had largely cooperated with the Brotherhood in order to maintain the peace. However, Peterson had no ambition of compromising the nation's power to anyone, let alone the Brotherhood of Steel. At the onset of war, the Brotherhood quickly gained the upper hand, achieving countless military victories against the NCR. Their advanced technologies, superior individual training, and advanced military tactics led to NCR losses so numerous it appeared that the outcome of the conflict was decided. However, the tide of war would soon turn in favor of the new California Republic. While the Brotherhood was formidable, they lacked a vital component to a long and drawn-out conflict: conscription. The Brotherhood society is very close-knit and usually relies on family members for replacements. This leads them to rarely, if ever, allowing outsiders to join their ranks. The NCR, on the other hand, did not suffer from this handicap, and every time they take losses, they are able to replenish their ranks before the next battle. With each skirmish, the Brotherhood takes casualties, and over time, this begins to greatly cripple the military strength of the faction. Eventually, their numbers dwindled to the point they were forced to retreat into their underground bunkers, forsaking above-ground strategic positions and allowing the NCR to regain ground and push back against them. And when the NCR pushed back, they pushed hard, destroying 6 chapter bunkers and forcing the Brotherhood to destroy 4 of their own to prevent the NCR from acquiring them. With the war in the West dying down, the NCR returned its focus to their expansion into the Mojave, where they soon came into conflict with the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. Skirmishes broke out between the two factions almost instantly, and after a couple years of fighting, the NCR decided that the Brotherhood was too big of a hindrance to their eastern expansion. It was time to retire the Mojave chapter forever. The NCR launched Operation Sunburst in hopes of eliminating the entire Brotherhood chapter in a single pitched battle. The Brotherhood was dug into the Helios 1 solar power plant, which wasn't easily defensible, allowing the Republic the upper hand. Furthermore, the NCR brought an extremely large force for this operation, between 15 and 20 to 1. Knowing from previous battles against the Brotherhood that if nothing else, they would win via attrition. It was a slaughter, and after the smoke had cleared, over half of the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel had been wiped out, including most of their experienced knights and paladins, with the remainder fleeing west through the mountains to safety. The Brotherhood War showed the citizens of the NCR that conflicts could be resolved quickly through military might, and with many citizens now military veterans, and others developing a strong sense of patriotism from the ongoing conflicts, they began voting for more imperialistic policies, idolizing generals instead of wise men, inching further and further away from the philosophies of Dharma, instilled by Aradesh and expanded on by Tandy. The Brotherhood War had left the NCR in a vulnerable state. Not only had they lost countless lives due to the conflict, but they also lost their gold reserves due to Brotherhood raids. When this occurred, the citizens panicked and rushed to trade in their dollars for whatever gold was left. The Republic had trouble keeping track of this event, especially on the frontiers where communication was already difficult. Before they could get a hold on the situation, the value of the NCR dollar had dropped significantly. The Republic reacted by removing the gold standard and enacting a fiat currency in order to keep from total economic collapse. This worked to stabilize their economy inside their central territory, but crippled its worth on the frontier, as many wastelanders did not hold faith in a currency that wasn't being backed by anything other than a government's word. The Hub realized this issue early on and responded to the currency crisis by reenacting bottle caps as the primary currency on the frontier, backing them with water and helping to create a rate of exchange for NCR dollars to caps. This stabilized economic relations, if only for a while. President Peterson served a consecutive 4 terms in office, and by the year 2269 began eroding the laws that limited the number of Brahmin and acreage a person could own, leading to resource barons and creating a massive wealth divide between the heads of industry and the average citizen. And with the rise of industry came the rise of production and commodity. With this, we see the rebirth of wage labor amongst the citizens of the NCR. No longer was the culture of the new California Republic focused on the collective, but rather focused on their individualistic needs.
Many sticks can be broken. A bundle cannot.
In the year 2273, the NCR Council voted representative of the Hub, Aaron Kimball, into office, ousting the former President Peterson. Kimball had won favor with the people for his status as a retired general and decorated war hero, whose rise to prominence came from his campaigns against the tribes of the Sierra Nevada mountains, as well as the tribes around Bullhead City in the Mojave. His methods were direct, draconian, and effective, leading to further support from the increasingly imperialistic NCR public. After the election, he finished overturning the limits placed on Brahmin and agriculture, making the barons even wealthier, and immediately ordered the occupation of Hoover Dam, which at the time was already occupied by Mr. House and the 3 families. After brief negotiations, they established the New Vegas Treaty, which allowed the NCR to occupy Hoover Dam and send water back to New California in exchange for New Vegas's independence and the NCR's business. This maneuver was massively popular with the people of the NCR, and support for Kimball skyrocketed. However, his image would begin to degrade with a long and drawn-out war for the Mojave Wasteland. During the presidency of Peterson in the year 2271, a document known as a Ranger Unification Treaty was signed between the Desert Rangers of Nevada and the Rangers of the New California Republic. This treaty brought the Rangers of Nevada into the ranks of the NCR in exchange for protection of Hoover Dam and the rest of the Mojave against a national superpower moving into the Mojave Wasteland from the east, Caesar's Legion. Skirmishes between the two superpowers broke out over the course of many years and culminated in a full-scale battle over the occupation of Hoover Dam, and the whole Mojave subsequently. The NCR was victorious in this conflict due to the strategic wit of Chief Hanlon, the commander of the NCR Rangers. However, the celebration was short-lived, and while the soldiers rejoiced over a victory against the Legion, the commander of the NCR's forces, General Oliver, fumed with jealousy. All the while, Caesar prepared on the other side of the river, sharpening his blades with his eyes trained west. It's here we begin to see the light peering from the cracks in the NCR. The Mojave campaign has been long, arduous, and uneconomic. The citizens of the NCR were told that the annexation would be quick. However, it's been anything but, and they are losing patience with the drain on resources and the countless lives that have been lost. Kimball only cares about results so long as he is re-elected, and as such, he overlooks a series of mistakes that could cost him everything. His first mistake involves his decision to send the elite veteran Rangers to Baja, chasing ghosts, so that the troopers can shine in the Mojave. The direct consequence of this action is now the people of the NCR directly associate this war in the Mojave with Kimball, meaning the longer they are fighting this war, the worse it is for him. This leads to his second and biggest mistake of all: the man who commands his army. Oliver is by no means a great general, and merely holds this rank and position in the Mojave campaign due to his close friendship with the president. While the Legion adapts its strategies to better combat the NCR, Oliver sticks to his guns, opting to amass troops at Hoover Dam to march against the Legion. A strategy not unfamiliar to those who fought in the Brotherhood War, and a strategy with the President Kimball seal of approval. Oliver is jealous that Hanlon got all the glory for the first battle of Hoover Dam, and because of this, refuses any strategic advice Hanlon offers him, often opting to do the exact opposite instead. He grossly underutilizes the Rangers, having most of them stationed at outposts to observe activity instead of using them to gain strategic footholds for the final battle of Hoover Dam. To further drive the nail in his coffin, he ignores the Legion's advances into the Mojave and refuses to properly reinforce strategic positions along or within his border. This leads to chaos in the Mojave due to a lack of manpower. As the Legion continues to massacre NCR outposts, Deathclaws and escaped convicts ravage the supply lines going east, and raiders manage to press the NCR encampments hard enough to inflict serious casualties. In stark opposition to the strategy enacted by Oliver, we have Ranger Chief Hanlon. He knows the Legion very well and understands just how tough and adaptable they truly are. He is acutely aware that Oliver's strategies will fail, and Caesar's Legion will not fall at the dam. After spending years in the Mojave, Hanlon came to the conclusion that holding the dam would do more harm to the NCR than good, and pulling out of the campaign is the only sane thing to do. And while Hanlon has the ear of Kimball, his counsel is less valued than some of the more militant officers in Kimball's cabinet. Hanlon sees the toll that the war that Caesar's Legion has left, not only on the troops, but on the citizens back home. Between that and Vegas bleeding the Republic dry of its wealth, his projections for the NCR's occupation look bleak. The dichotomy between Oliver and Hanlon is a sentiment that is echoed throughout the entire chain of command, with many block-headed, hawkish soldiers in support of Kimball and the Mojave campaign, while others see the forest for the trees and know that military might can only get a nation so far. This sentiment is again exemplified with Colonel Moore and Colonel Shue. Colonel Moore is a decorated officer in the NCR Military, having served 4 tours against the Brotherhood of Steel, as well as having served in the NCR Rangers. Imperialistic in nature, her tactics involve swift, direct action and extermination of the enemy at all costs. In 2281, she is the acting commander of the NCR forces garrisoned at Hoover Dam. In contrast, Colonel Shue is a much more level-headed and calm leader, realizing the importance of diplomacy, as well as showing genuine care for the troops under him and the people of the Mojave. The leadership style between the two is clear and evident on how they go about resolving the political issues between the NCR and other local factions inhabiting the wasteland, with Shue offering to establish treaties and trade, and Moore opting for extermination, lest they oppose her in the future. While Colonel Shue is the acting commander of the NCR troops in the Mojave, this doesn't count for much due to his commands constantly being undermined by Oliver and Moore, who continue to pull troops from Shue's jurisdiction over to the dam for Oliver's grand strategy. This ultimately cripples Colonel Shue's ability to protect the Mojave territory and engage in effective diplomacy. Actions such as this tarnish the reputation of the entire NCR in the wasteland, as well as stacking the deck against them, leading up to the final battle of Hoover Dam. Without the help of the community around them, they have no hope of defeating Caesar's Legion, or incorporating Vegas as a new state into the Republic, and if Hanlon's projections prove true, they won't be able to hold the Mojave long term even if the campaign itself is successful. And now we begin to see their fatal flaw. The mixture of overexpansion, cronyism, and imperialistic plutocracy are just symptoms of the underlying problem. The root issue is that the NCR is no longer acting for the betterment of the community. They are now merely acting for the enrichment of themselves. Greed has taken hold as the leaders care only for making themselves wealthy and powerful. They become increasingly hostile and warlike with each new campaign, choosing their presidents based on martial prowess instead of policy. In a world where they no longer worry about survival, they succumb to selfishness, viewing themselves above all others as they discard diplomacy as weak and ineffective. This is the sickness referenced by Ulysses in The Divide. The NCR has become debased, corrupt, and lacking in virtue. Long have they forsaken the teachings of Dharma, Aradesh, and Tandy, who knew that their true strength came not from military might, but from community with their neighbors. And it's the new California Republic's arrogance that will be their downfall, for once they were a bundle. But now, well, now they are just mere sticks. 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 Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that way you can see whenever I drop a new Fallout lore video. And until we meet next, voile, amicus.
In the many years since its occupation, the Mojave Desert has seen no shortage of war. The blood of innocents, heroes, villains, and martyrs saturate the scorching sands. Countless lives have been lost in half-baked campaigns and foolhardy invasions. But not all horrors a soldier faces are found inside a uniform. No. For some, the horrors lurking in the shadows are much, much worse. This is the tale of Camp Guardian, an ill-conceived NCR outpost whose entire population suddenly and abruptly vanished. Now, my legionaries, welcome to the wasteland. To the wasteland. To the wasteland. To the wasteland. At the height of their war with the Legion, the NCR scrambled to reinforce their border along the Colorado River, fearing that the Legion would attempt to cross in force and catch them undefended. It was in this scramble that they discovered a prime location, just across Lake Mead, to the north of Hoover Dam. A single peak, reaching high above the lake, presenting a perfect vantage point of the valley below. From here, a squad of troopers would be able to observe the landscape and report if any Legion forces began crossing the lake north, completely bypassing the heavily fortified Camp Gulf to the west. The NCR would immediately dispatch a survey team to Guardian Peak, led by a surveyor named Burke. The team would eagerly climb the peak upon arrival, noting the view of the Colorado from atop, and would deem its location strategically sound enough to move forward with military occupation. Burke and his team, however, failed to properly conduct a thorough survey, and because of this, information that would be vital to the success of the encampment wasn't uncovered until it was too late. Shortly after the report from the survey team arrived, a single squad, led by Sergeant Banner, was dispatched to occupy Guardian Peak and establish an official camp. After 3 days of perilous marching in the desert heat and through the cazador-infested canyons of the eastern Mojave, the squad had finally arrived. Although, what they found was far from what they expected.
Camp Guardian Daily Log. Sergeant Banner reporting. Day 3. This place is a mess. Most of the old hiking trails are buried in landslides, and the rest is so dusted you can't tell which direction you're supposed to go. I don't know what the hell the survey team was thinking when they said this was a strategically sound location. At least we were issued plenty of rations, and the river has plenty of fresh water. We could eat for months. Let's hope tomorrow brings some headway cleaning this place up. Day 5. We've managed to shovel most of the debris up to the first bridge. This thing looks like a wreck. Thankfully, there were a few wooden shacks around we can dismantle for scrap to rebuild. I just hope we don't run out of scrap before we finish the trail. Jackson said he heard some kind of howling the other night. It sounded like wind to me. Day 7. Okay, we're making good headway cleaning up the paths. With only the 12 of us, I'm amazed we've moved this much rock in such a short time. Kel and I made it to the top yesterday. The survey team was right. Guardian Peak has one hell of a view, but we still have a lot of work ahead of us. I sent a runner to Bravo to request a radio from McCarran. There isn't much point in having an overwatch camp here if it takes us at least an hour to sprint to Bravo to report a Legion assault.
With the cleanup efforts well underway and the camp officially established, the soldiers were allowed a moment to breathe and even have some fun, as can be seen when observing the new and improved sign for Guardian Peak, showcasing a truly warm human moment amidst the coldness of this long and drawn-out conflict. This peace would not last, however, as the camp would soon face a series of supply issues, and if that wasn't bad enough, strange occurrences began cropping up, leaving some soldiers unsettled, and one in particular, increasingly unnerved.
Camp Guardian Daily Log. Sergeant Banner reporting. Day 8. More complaints of strange noises by Jackson. I'm starting to think he still has some unresolved issues after seeing his last squad wiped out by a Legion slaver squad to the south. I sent out a few men to investigate, but they couldn't find anything. I think we should keep Jackson away from the munitions until he calms down. Day 12. We managed to get the rest of the path cleared. Some pre-war fencing was mostly intact, and we were able to set it up as a makeshift barrier on the more dangerous cliffs. I hope none of these jarheads fall off. We found a few cave entrances as we were clearing rubble. They lead back to each other, with just a single collapsed path which appears to lead down into the mountain. The damn survey team didn't mention any caves. I hope we don't find any more little surprises. Day 13. It's been almost a week, and still no sign of a radio from McCarran. I'm sending a runner to Bravo to see if they can spare a handheld or any other radio gear until McCarran can get around to sending the gear I requested. I swear, those dumb bastards back at command expect us to use carrier pigeons or something. Day 14. It's been a week, and still no sign of a radio from McCarran. At least Bravo was nice enough to give us a handheld so we can relate to them in the meantime should Caesar try anything. Halford will get the radio set up if and when it finally arrives. For now, he's in charge of the handheld and daily reports to Bravo.
After 2 long and frustrating weeks, the squad of troopers had finally reached a settling point at the newly established Camp Guardian. With a radio in hand and tents over their heads, the mission to watch for signs of Legion advancement finally had a chance of success. In the coming days, however, events would slowly begin to take a turn for the worse.
Camp Guardian Daily Log. Sergeant Banner, reporting. Day 15. The handheld is working well enough, and we finished building steps up the steeper sections of the path. We can finally move the rest of our gear to the top. Last night, Jackson came screaming into the tent, swearing up and down he saw shadows moving in the water. I know legionaries are known to be fast runners, but swimming across the river? I sent half the men in pairs to search the area, but again we came up empty-handed. I'm starting to think Jackson is unstable and may need counseling. I'll request a replacement when we get the radio from McCarran. Day 18. We finally got the radio from McCarran. I've set it up on the peak so anyone on Overwatch duty can quickly radio in if the Legion makes a move. I'd like to know which genius back at command decided to send a squad to this location, but didn't think to give us a radio so we could actually call in an attack. Probably another politician's son. Day 19. Okay, now I'm starting to hear noises. During my watch last night, I definitely heard splashes down in the water. I requested an additional survey from McCarran, but they blew it off his nerves. Fish don't make that much damn noise. I sent down half the squad with lamps, but they couldn't see anything. We can't find any other cave openings. Maybe I've caught a little crazy from Jackson. I wish we had some cat eye. Can't see shit at night. Day 20. More surprises. Collins came across a cave entrance right behind our damn tent. The survey team should have caught this if they'd done a thorough job. I have no idea if anything is in there, but we don't have the manpower to deal with any serious pests. I'm going to have some choice words for Burke the next time I see him. This isn't the first time that idiot skipped over details while surveying an area. I hope to God we're not sitting on some kind of nest. I'm going to send in Frakes and Collins to scout the caves tomorrow. If we have to, we'll use explosives to collapse the cave.
The rippling of tattered pages ride the harsh winds as they slice across the peak. The once vibrant NCR encampment, filled with hearty laughter and frustrated moans, now silent. Empty. The population of Camp Guardian completely vanishing into the night, with very few hints to their fate. Before disappearing, one of the troopers was able to send out a distress signal to Camp Bravo. A distress signal, much to his dismay, that Bravo would never receive.
Bravo, come in, Bravo. Is anyone out there? We were attacked by some kind of freak mutants from the caves. Please send backup. Goddamn leg. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna make it before I bleed out. Bravo, come in, Bravo. The camp was attacked. I think I'm the only one left alive. Guardian is down. I repeat, Guardian is down. Requesting backup from any nearby forces. Those beasts drug the rest of the men away. Oh God, I hope they don't come back for me.
In the chaos of the attack, Private Halford managed to pull his knife and plunge it deep into the hideous monster that had abducted him. This saved his life, but at a heavy cost. He was beaten up from the struggle and could no longer walk as one of his legs had been completely dislocated. Halford managed to drag himself into a corner of the cave, hoping to stay out of sight of the others. Dejected and broken, there was no way he was escaping the tunnels in his current state. Deciding it would be best, he hunkered down in his corner to wait for reinforcements from Camp Bravo. Reinforcements that never came. Halford listened on to the wails of his fellow squad mates as they were dragged down deeper and deeper into the mountain. The walls carrying echoes of their torture, dismemberment, the sound of monsters feasting on the flesh of the men and women he served with. his friends, his family. In those moments, Private Halford cursed the incompetence of the NCR. If only the survey team looked closer, his squad might still be alive. Damn them, he swore. Damn them. If he ever gets out of this hellhole, he's never returning to service for the NCR. He told himself over and over as the walls of the cave continued their symphony. And just as Halford was at his lowest, a small light appeared before him, and behind it, a shadow, vaguely human in appearance. What could have been mistaken for the Reaper in his desperate state was something else entirely.
Relax, my friend. I'll take it from here. Ranger CSF, codename Wastelord. I've came across the remains of Camp Guardian after hearing their distress signal, and have done my best to record the history of what happened here, by putting notes of Sergeant Banner into holotape recordings so that they can survive longer. After finding the cave Banner was talking about, I entered and discovered Private Halford, who was in need of medical assistance. After giving him the best help I could offer, I sent him on his way and dealt with the threat lurking in the caves. I knew there was something fishy down here. It turns out the cave was infested with lake lurks. I cleared the cave and collected the tags of the fallen soldiers. My only hope is that their loved ones find peace in knowing that they have been avenged.